Alright, number 11, we want to find the perimeter of the triangle whose vertices are -1, -2, 7, -2, and 7, -4. So, I'm just going to give a little sketch. I'm not going to draw it to scale. But we have our first point here, and then that is -1, -2. And then that line is going to be connected to our next point, which is 7, -2. And it's actually going to be on a straight line, but it's okay. And then our third point drops down, and it will be connected with 7, 4. So what's happening is we're going to use the distance formula. Now I could probably draw this to scale, and since those are on the horizontal axis, I can count those on the horizontal axis, or it could be on the vertical axis. These are actually horizontal, the x's are the same. So those would be side by side. These two would be vertical. But I could count those two, but then there will be a diagonal one that I'd have to use the distance formula for. However, yours could be different, so I'm just going to do the distance formula on all three parts. So we have to do distance 1 between these 2 points. We'll just call it D1. We have to do between these 2 points, we'll call it D2, distance 2. And then from this point back to this point, so we'll call it D3. So we're going to do the distance formula 3 times because we want to find the perimeter. And perimeter is adding the outside around the shape. So I'm going to set these up. And since these numbers are relatively small, we're going to try to do this with some mental math. Write down as much as you need, however, as you're doing this. So, whenever you do distance, I know it says, x2 minus x1 and so forth and so on. It doesn't matter the order that you put them in. As long as, if I use this point first, I use that point first. I'm not sure if you can mix them up. And the reason I'm saying that is because in the formula, let's say if I had 5 minus 6, that's going to be squared. So it'll be a -1 squared, which will be a +1. And even if I flip the order, 6 minus 5, it will still be a +1 here. When you square it, it's still going to be a +1. So I think even if you switch the order, it'll still work out. But you do want to practice on putting things in the correct order, because not every formula is squared and not every formula will work out to be the same. However, instead of doing 2 minus 1, I'm going to do this point minus that point and just go around this point to that point to that point. Okay, so I'm going to start out with my x values. -1 minus 7. -1 minus 7 squared. Okay, then plus, we're going to do our y values. -2 minus -2. -2 minus -2. Alright, so with this one, we get 8. Square that, you get 64. With this one, I'm going to write 64. With this one, 2 minus a -2, that becomes 2 plus 2, which gives you, or -2 plus 2, which gives you 0. So we have square root of 64, which equals 8. So this distance 1 is 8. Alright, now I'm going to go from this point to this point. So I got 7 minus 7. We're going to square that. And then plus, we're going to do our y values. -2 minus 4. And we're going to square that. So 7 minus 7 is going to give us 0. When you square 0, you get 0. Alright, over here, -2 minus 4 gives you a -6. When you square that, you get 36. When you add those, you get 36. So the square root of 36 equals 6. So distance 2 is 6. Alright, now we're going to go from this point to this point. So we're going to do our x values first. 7 minus a -1. 7 minus -1 squared plus, and now we're going to do our y values. 4 minus a -2. and that's also squared. So we get 8 here squared, we get 64. Alright, 6 here, because minus a negative becomes plus, so we get 6. Square 6, you get 36. When I add 64 and 36, it gives me 100. So I'm looking at the square root of 100, which is 10. And then lastly, we're going to add up each of these parts, and we get 24. So our perimeter for problem number 11 is 24. Alright, number 12, we want to find the perimeter of triangle with these vertices. So again, we're going to do the same process. I'm going to set up, I'm going to write down these 3 ordered pairs, and then we're going to find the perimeter. Type exact answer, do not round. So hopefully they're whole numbers again. 12. The ordered pairs we have are -6, -1. And then we have 10 to 11. And then 1 to -1. Alright, so we have the distance between these two, distance between these 2 points, and then distance between these 2 points. So this is going to be 1, 2, and this is distance 3. So here to here, here to here, and then from here back to here. It's going to be 1, D2, D3. Alright, so x values first. -6 minus 10 squared. -1 minus 11. Alright, so 6 and 10 will give me a -16. When you square 16, that will give you 256. Alright, and then here we will get -12. Square that, we get 144. So over here we have the square root of 400 when you add those together, and that will just give you 20. Alright, so now we're going to go this point to this point. 10 minus 1 for my x values. Squared. 11 minus -1. 11 minus -1. And then 10 minus 1 is 9. You square it, you get 81. And then over here, minus a negative becomes plus, so 12 squared, 144. And then when we add these two together, 225, square root, 225, and that's going to give us 15. And then our last step from here to here, 1 minus a -6. 1 minus -6. And then -1 minus -1. And these are squared. Minus a negative becomes plus a positive. So this one we get 0. 0 squared is 0. Over here we get 7 squared, 49. And so we have the square root of 49. And that equals 7. Alright, so if we add these values up, 35 and 7 will give us 42. So perimeter of vertices given in 12 is 42.